Welcome to the Asbestos Knowledge Empire.
What does asbestos management mean to you?
I used to really struggle with the asbestos management at my site, but now it's a breeze.
It used to be really expensive. I was paying loads, but now I've got my asbestos power team in place. It's so much easier.
Asbestos can be a pain in the arse if not handled right.
We had to stop the job because asbestos was discovered. Now we don't have that problem.
Asbestos management is easier than you think. Asbestos management. Be proactive, not reactive. Think about asbestos first, not last.
And now your hosts, best-selling authors and asbestos experts, Ian Stone and Neil Munro.
So morning. So we've got Paul and Mavis here with us today. We're discussing, well, all sorts really. Good morning, guys.
Morning. So yes, do you want to kind of introduce yourselves and kind of give us a bit of a rundown on who you are?
All right, Paul.
You, Paul and Mavis, yeah, sorry.
Go on, Mavis, go on. You start.
Mavis first.
So I'm Mavis Nye. That name seems to be known by everybody now.
Yeah.
Mine started, Ray worked in Chatham Dockyard, and we used to get the dust in his hair. I was only sort of 15 when we first met, and he was an apprentice, but then I got married and I washed his clothes. And that's where I sort of shook the dust off. Still didn't mean nothing to us. Asbestos wasn't a dangerous substance at that time because no one told us it was. And then I was diagnosed in 2009. From that, I became an asbestos activist. I don't know how it happened, but it happened. And I was speaking in the House of Commons. I've spoken mostly Holland, Isle of Guernsey, wherever anyone wanted to listen to me, I'd talk because I wanted to bring the awareness of asbestos. And I became that voice of the patient that sort of, because of immunotherapy, I've now lasted 12 years. So that voice has been going and going.
Yeah, very well. Yeah, I've kind of followed you for quite a long time, really, on social media, particularly LinkedIn. You've been quite active, haven't you? And really campaigning, spreading the awareness, and kind of helping consultancies and removal contractors kind of get that message out as well, haven't you? Exactly,
yeah. And I like to introduce people to people, and from that it's growing and growing, and that's where Paul's coming in now with his what I call an umbrella. Let's bring it all together under one umbrella. Yeah, talking from the same hymn sheet, as they say.
Excellent. So that kind of leads us on to Paul. Paul, kind of give us an introduction from yourself, mate.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm different from Mavis. So I am, what am I? I'm 46. I was diagnosed with mesothelioma in 2017. So my background, fairly corporate background. I had my own business or a couple of businesses. Never been in the trades, never been on a building site, never been in the military. You know, the sort of stereotypical places that people associate with asbestos and mesothelioma. So when I was diagnosed, as you can imagine, I mean, I didn't know what mesothelioma was. I never even, asbestos or the dangers of asbestos, to be honest, had never even crossed my mind. So I was diagnosed, as I say, in 2017. Like Mavis, was given a fairly horrific prognosis, and I went the more traditional route from a treatment standpoint. So that was surgery where I had radical decortication, pleurectomies. I had the lining of my lung removed. I had chemotherapy. I had radiotherapy. And then after that, you have to spend sort of a fair amount of time getting over the treatments, actually. Yeah. You know, the treatments in some ways are as bad as the disease. My thought process after that was I wanted to do something to, you know, luckily I'm here. For the time being, I'm in remission. And I wanted to do something, I don't want to say to give back, but I just wanted to do something that made a difference. Now, research for mesothelioma is, it is desperately underfunded. So, and my background was slightly different because it was that sort of corporate world. So I created a charity called ActionMeso in 2019. And unlike Mavis, I mean, Mavis and I have become good friends. And by the way, Mavis was amazing to me when I was diagnosed, etc. So thank you once again, Mavis. But Mavis is, I mean, you want to know, you want support or you want to know about mesothelioma, the Mavis and I Foundation and Mavis, there's your lady. We set up a Raise Miso really to do two things. One was to raise awareness, but the second it was to raise funds for research. That's it. In 2019 as well, I mean, one of the things that was really important for me was to raise hope. When I was diagnosed, I remember coming back from the hospital and my wife was looking online, and you all have experienced this, Mavis. She was looking for some semblance of normality or hope and telling me, I found someone here, they've still been around for 2 years. 1 minute I'm a 43-year-old man, fairly healthy, young family, blah, blah, blah. Next minute, my wife's getting excited because she's found someone on the internet that's still alive, albeit very ill 2 years later. So 2019, I cycled across the UK. I did that with a guy called Nigel Shaddick, who is also a friend of all of us. And that was really to raise awareness. And then we can come on to the ActionMeso campaign, but I think you want to talk about that later on, don't you?
Yeah. So, well, I suppose being diagnosed with cancer must be massive sort of shock. But to kind of find out then that it's an asbestos-related cancer must be a real sort of double hit, particularly for you, Paul, where you've got no trace back to an event or an industry or work situation where you've potentially been exposed. Have you kind of explored that to try and sort of get an idea of, was it maybe a school or
probably something
like that? Because at 43, that's even from like an asbestos latency period, that's really young, isn't it?
Yeah, it's really young. And as you said, I mean, I we all do those jobs when you're younger, when you're at college and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I've worked in bars and stuff. So it's not even that I've done a temporary job, working in the trades or anything like that. Yeah. For me, it was more sort of bar work and stuff. So I mean, school is probably an obvious one when you look at the latency period. Yeah. But as you say, I mean, I couldn't, when they told me I had mesothelioma, well, two things really. I was quite pragmatic at first. They said, we found some cancerous cells. So I was like, okay, well, what are we going to do about it?
Yeah.
And they said, well, you've got something called mesothelioma, which I'd never heard of or couldn't even say at the time.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, so fine, again, what are we going to do about it? And then Dot said, I'll never forget this. She said, well, unfortunately, we're not very good at curing this one. Good. When I said you're not very good, she said, well, there is no cure.
Yeah.
And then, as you say, to be told that's from asbestos, I mean, just couldn't work it out because that wasn't the background. So yeah, it's a shock is an understatement.
Yeah. So what are the kind of did you have similar kind of initial symptoms for this disease from both of you, really?
Yeah. What kind of happened to lead you to go to the doctors and to identify what you had?
I've been to Spain for 2 months and came back, and I was told I burnt my arm and I didn't feel it. So I went to the doctors and said, something's wrong with my arm. And so he said it was a trachoma nerve, and it was a nurse friend that said, Mavis, that's not a trachoma nerve. Please get a second opinion. So I got a second opinion, and he sent me for an X-ray. When I came back, it was voting day, and I went up to vote and couldn't. And I just couldn't breathe. All of a sudden, you just can't breathe. It's gone. And I stumbled back home. And I don't know why, but the phone went at that moment, and it was my doctor who said to me, Mavis, we booked you a bed in the A&E. Get to the A&E because he said we've had a result of your X-ray, and there's a huge mass. God, that journey to that hospital was awful. And they drained off 7 litres of fluid.
Yeah.
Wow. So that's why your lung collapses.
Yeah.
Because of the weight of all that fluid in your chest there, in your lung. And that's how it all started, really, because I was given 3 months to live. Then I had the pleural, I had the biopsy done, and you get a porthole. We call it, just have a porthole where they go in and do it all from the porthole, and that was how it all started.
Wow, crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy. And like you said, that came from not necessarily you having an occupation with asbestos.
I'm a secondary, yeah.
Secondary.
I mean, I've been in contact with asbestos after that because Ray carried on and worked a place in Who, and with asbestos, they made all the flower pots and all the flower trunks that you see in London flats and that, all the hanging over, so they have a hanging basket.
Yeah.
But that wasn't very long. But I actually worked myself at Thorns Lighting, and I was an operator first, and then on a Saturday I volunteered to go into work, and you blew out the machine, and so you used an airline and you're blowing and so there must have been asbestos around the burners.
Right, yeah.
So I've blown that over myself, I've blown it over the other people there.
Yeah.
Oh, when I think about it, And then gradually you start losing friends. I mean, Ray's lost all his friends.
Yeah.
And it was lung cancer. Okay, lung cancer. And I said, everyone's dying of lung cancer, Ray. We didn't know about mesothelioma. We didn't know the word.
Yeah.
And so, everyone seemed to be dying of lung cancer. And then my friends that worked with me at Thorns, a couple of those women, they had lung cancer.
Wow.
So it's all there. The clues are there, but no one ties it all together.
And do you know what? I still find that now today that to talk about it, and when we're trying to educate people about the risks of asbestos, that the kind of, for some people it clicks, but a lot of people it still doesn't. And I was manager of ATAC for 3 years, and through that I was part of the Asbestos in Schools campaign, and I met quite a few people who had either lost loved ones or did lose loved ones through it. And again, essentially, like both of you've been exposed through no kind of work with it, and that's what kind of worries me. That people that are still going to work today, damaging asbestos day in, day out, because they think, I'm all right, Jack, it won't affect me, it's not an issue anymore. And that's the kind of, just hearing again from you two, from the fact that you never worked with it per se, and you've both been affected massively. And that's what worries me for all of the construction workers, the plumbers, the electricians that are going to work today, because as a business, we find that it's ridiculous. We've been in the asbestos industry for about 20 years, and the message that we've been trying to get over to everybody for the last 20 years has never changed. But also, I would say that the kind of uptick in knowledge of asbestos, it hasn't been exponential. There's not been like a massive uplift in everybody now knowing about asbestos. It's kind of like, I don't know, a 5% increase at best from when I first started 20 years ago. Yeah. And that's ridiculous.
Yeah. That's what I love about, you said I'm on LinkedIn and that, but and tweeting and that. I love all the lads that send me photos.
Yeah.
Please send me photos, and then that's what I then share on, because where they find it is amazing. The one I put on yesterday has caused a lot of concern, because it's there on the pipes, and a driller and someone's drilled through all that and put cables in that.
Yeah.
But, so yeah, there's a lot to be learned.
Yeah, definitely. So kind of, obviously you're outside the asbestos industry. So what's kind of your opinions of the asbestos industry and the regulations themselves? Is there anything you kind of want to change or see better?
Yeah, the regulations need changing every 5 years. They still haven't been changed. Is it 2012?
Yeah.
13? Yeah. I mean, here we are, 2021.
Yeah.
So they need to be updated every 5 years, definitely.
Okay. Is there any particular kind of changes you'd like to see in that, or anything that we could be doing better as an industry?
I think as an industry, yeah, make it raising awareness and train. You know, with COVID, training has gone out the window a bit, and people so it's gone right down. So this has got to be brought up, and this has got to be stopped.
Yeah,
because we need to train.
Yeah. So what's your opinion on the training? Like from an online point of view or classroom based? Have you got an opinion on that?
I prefer it to be actually there
face to face.
Yeah, in a classroom, as I would call it. But I've been going into meetings and where they're training, still managed to train. And it's been wonderful to see the young lads there, you know, and I love talking to them. And Ray talks to them as well. And from them, they learn then about the dangers of it. And so their eyes are wide open and they love the story, really, that we do tell.
Yeah.
Ray, this wonderful story about working with it in the dockyard.
Yeah. Just how is Ray? Is he okay?
Well, he's got it was scarrings and air pockets. He's got lung damage, but it's the DNA that changes, and when you've got cancer, that causes the mesothelioma. The asbestos goes in there and irritates and causes the cancer, doesn't it? So he can't have the same DNA as me.
Yeah.
You know, they have gone in and they've published my DNA. The Royal Mail published it. I do anything I do just to pay back, you know, because they gave me such, you know, this extra time.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
Of it.
Yeah. So do you consider yourself lucky or unlucky? It's a double-edged sword, isn't it? It's like
I call it lucky. I know it's terrible. I've got mesothelioma and I'm calling it lucky.
Yeah.
But I'm lucky that they found the drugs. The drugs are coming through. I'm the longest person now in the UK living with it after having immunotherapy. So, because it's 12 years now I've lived. So that to me is luck.
Yeah, it's amazing, really, isn't it? Considering.
Yeah. But with that comes the survivor's guilt.
Yeah.
I've got a terrible survivor's guilt, and it gets worse every year. And I hate talking to carers that have lost, you know, because I just feel guilty.
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
Because what would you say is the kind of the average life expectancy for that kind of diagnosis? Is it around 2 years?
Well, year, 2 years, really. With no treatment. With no treatment, you've got to say that. Really. That's what the doctor should say to us. Okay, you've got 3 months. No, if you don't have treatment. But with treatment, we can extend that. And they don't know how long they can extend that. And I'm proof of that.
Yeah.
You know, I've shocked them.
That's amazing.
Well done.
Yeah, it's amazing. It is. So, kind of moving on to ActionMeso then. What is ActionMeso?
Right. So, maybe we need to take a bit of a step back, really. So, when I sort of was diagnosed, started to raise Miso, and then started getting more involved with mesothelioma and the asbestos industry, I was quite shocked at how disparate the industry is. Yeah. Or if for now, let's call it the community. And by the community, anyone that's related to asbestos, mesothelioma. So I'm talking from training, building companies, asbestos removal companies, lawyers, insurers, patients, carers, medics, the whole group.
Yeah.
And I couldn't believe, firstly, as I say, how disparate the whole thing was. You talked about, it's interesting you say that in your experience, the knowledge about the dangers of asbestos has maybe increased by 5%. It is staggering the lack of awareness about the dangers of asbestos. And if it's bad within the community, you go outside of the community to your man and woman on the street, it is terrible. A lot of people just don't think asbestos is a problem, full stop. You know, it was banned many years ago, it's not an issue. And you asked, Mavis is far more knowledgeable than I am. You asked about what could the industry do better. I mean, it's really simple: education and awareness, and that that is, I think that needs to be the most important thing we can do. So what's ActionMeso? I suddenly realised that you had all of these various groups, and they were doing great work, but all of the groups are pretty small. There isn't one company or charity or group that is large within the Miso community. If we take Mesothelioma UK, for example, as a charity, it's a fantastic charity. Liz Darlinson and her colleagues do an amazing job, but it's still tiny in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah.
And the only way that we are going to get any traction whatsoever is if we come together. And that's really the purpose of ActionMeso. It's trying to bring everyone together with the idea of, first of all, actually creating some awareness of the dangers of asbestos and also mesothelioma, with hopefully one day eradication of asbestos. So somebody asked me, well, awareness, what does that mean? Well, I don't know, how many adults have we got in the UK? 35, 40 million people? So that's the goal. And it sounds big. It is. It's absolutely enormous. But unless we get to the point that every adult in this country knows what mesothelioma is, knows what the danger of asbestos, I don't really see how we're going to affect change.
Yeah.
I know. Just talking to some of the working groups, support groups, for example, they write to various politicians, and they just bat it back. Of course they do, because there's no numbers in it. It's a small support group doing great work that it's easy for the politicians to push back. I was talking to somebody yesterday who'd given a speech saying about, talking about asbestos in schools, and somebody from the audience actually called their school to find out about asbestos, and was told, if you want to find out more, you've got to go through the Freedom of Information Act.
Yeah.
I mean, it is shocking what's going on there. So we need to come together. So ActionMeso is create awareness and with the idea of eventually eradicating the problem. But for now, it's about awareness. So, what is the goal? First goal is really we've got to get the message out there to the adult population of the UK. It's a massive job, and we need to go outside of the Miso community in order to be able to educate people. But the first thing we need to do is actually to bring people together within the community. And the idea is that we're trying to get people to, or organizations, associations, companies, groups, to really put their own agendas aside, just to come together in order to get that awareness. So, I mean, what have we done in the last? We've been going for what, about a year, Mavis? Is that about right? When we started talking, and I mean, initially, this was just an idea around ActionMeso Day, and let's try and do something really different and really go have a massive day, big event, got loads of press, etc. Obviously, COVID happened, so we couldn't do that. But funny enough, one of the positives of that is actually rather than it be about a day, it's become an ongoing campaign. So I'm really pleased to say, I mean, we've got lots of the charities involved, from the Mavis Nye Foundation, Miso UK, Erase Miso, Glynis Gale Foundation. There's various charities. We've got, I would say, the majority of the asbestos victim support groups have come on board. I think we've got 19 at the moment, which is absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
Goals for this year, as I said, unless we get the community on board, then this is a dead duck, right? Because if we can't all come together, then we have no chance of really gaining traction with the man and woman on the street. So our goals for this year are to bring the law firms together, to bring the asbestos removal companies together, and also the medical community that is involved with mesothelioma and asbestos related diseases. I would hope that we're pushing on an open door. But let me tell you, it's not necessarily been the case.
Right.
And I mean that's a really sad thing. So what I would love, I mean, if we can all come together, we're not trying to take anything away from anyone. We're just trying to come together to create that awareness. We're not asking for money. All we're asking for at the moment is for support. Join, support us, and that's it. And that's our goal for this year.
Great. That's a great goal. No, that really does surprise me that you've come up against resistance in that, because from our point of view, this is what we're here for. This is the sole purpose, is to help people and to prevent people being exposed to asbestos. That's the whole kind of purpose of why we're in business. From helping people manage it to helping people identify it and manage that risk. And then to find there's kind of barriers being put in that you wouldn't join that.
Can I just interject there? Because I mean, you say that, and I'm sure that's your goal, etc. So this isn't directed at you two in any way.
Yeah.
But you just said earlier, in your time in the industry, you've seen that awareness increase by maybe 5%.
Yeah.
And you've been doing this for a long time.
Yeah.
So if this was an open door, and if everybody was being collaborative and coming together and getting the message out there, you would, you wouldn't be seeing a 5% increase. You would have seen that message kind of extrapolate.
Yeah. So we're one small voice in quite a big industry, really, and I think the problems that we face in educating people is the resistance to, one, spend the money for contractors, to give them the time, because to take them off a job to go and do a course costs them money. And now we've got the online version. I'm really against the online training, because I don't feel that where people do online courses, they pay any attention to the course that's being delivered.
It's a tick box exercise. That's how it feels to me. Of like, yes, you can learn something from an online course. Don't get me wrong. And we've been and are in a pandemic, and that is the only way to do things at the moment. And is the benefit in it? Yes, but overall, what's better? Now, for me, the on a scale of something for training purposes, is it's always face to face. It's always in the classroom. You can engage better. You can, for me personally, when I undertake training and learn something, I need to kind of relate it back to me, and I need to be able to ask questions to identify, okay, you've just said this about that regulation. So for me to comply with that regulation in what I do, does it mean this? And I need that kind of interaction to have that conversation.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people are like that, because otherwise you're just learning facts, figures, yeah, whatever, tick box. Oh, I've got my certificate. I can forget about it and go and crack on with my real job.
Yeah.
Whereas this should be seen as part of your job.
Yeah. And to add to training, yes, there's regulations in place where if you're likely to come into contact with asbestos, you must have that training. But there's no enforcement of people who are organising jobs, and that's kind of forgotten about, because it's a requirement for them to have that training as well. So, for instance, duty holders, people who are organising jobs. So, you might have a facilities manager who never actually does any physical work, but he's organising jobs. There's no kind of enforcement of the regulation in those areas, and I think that's a big problem, where people who are influencing construction works and maintenance works, they're not really being forced to have this training. And that would help really spread the word.
It would. I mean, I've got a question for you. So for me, there's two ways of tackling this issue. One is, like we discussed, the community coming together and us spreading the word and getting the message out there and educating people and eradicating it, which that does work and will work. But also there's another side of that, in fact, of government and regulations. Do you think the government are doing everything they possibly can to spread the message? Are the regulations strong enough? If people don't comply with the regulations, are the fines and everything, are they enough, do you think?
No. I mean, this is really simple for me. I think this is a numbers game. And if we want to get that enforcement, if we want the government to really take notice, and this isn't about the Conservative government that's in power at the moment, this is about all governments, because it comes down to money, right? And if we want the governments to take notice, and if we want regulations to be enforced, this needs to be near the top of the agenda. And at the moment, the problem is we as a community and generally is too disparate. If we get the numbers behind us, yeah, then it becomes more important to politicians. It's very, very simple. So just to be clear, when we say about bringing the community together for ActionMeso, that is step one. And as soon as we've done that, we need to go to, you know, your man and woman on the street. We need to engage parents, for example. If parents really understood the situation with asbestos in schools, they would be horrified.
Yeah.
Yeah. We start engaging the parents. We start engaging the teachers, the people working in hospitals, just as an example. One of the things that we're going to do with ActionMeso is we're creating a young person's advisory board. And I'm talking about, I don't know, sort of 16 to 22, 23-year-olds, something like that. Because a lot of these individuals, they don't even know what asbestos is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because, and we're talking about, even people in the trades. I mean, they do not understand the import or the dangers of asbestos. So we need to start engaging young people. Coming back to your question, do government and regulations go far enough? I think the simple answer is no. But in order for us to affect change, we need to be, a bit of a movement. And what is that? Yeah. That's just sheer numbers.
Yeah.
Bringing the community together. Suddenly, I guarantee you, if we were, a campaign that had 500,000 people, 1 million people that were supporting us, I guarantee you, governments and politicians would take notice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you raised some couple of good points in there. Is schools and hospitals. If you take those two, where particularly there's focus on hospitals at the minute. Hospitals and schools and education, parents worried about their children. They're the two, one of the two highest risk sites. Hospitals and schools. If we look at it, it's around 78% schools in England contain asbestos. Now, just that figure alone would shock any parent. It shocks me, and I'm in the industry. And there is real concerns in schools about effective asbestos management, because how can you actually effectively manage asbestos? Can you keep it safe within a school?
So my son is 8 years old, right? I mean, if you want to quality control something, give it to a bunch of 8-year-olds.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, they're not gentle with anything.
Exactly
right?
that.
So if you're telling me that if you've got asbestos there, I don't know how you, for example, just take a primary school, you can safely manage it when you've got a group of, little people being little people, doing what they should do. You've got, knocking pins into walls to hang up artwork. You've got all of this stuff that should go on. You're not asking people to change their behaviours. That's what kids should be doing.
Yeah.
But I mean, how you're telling me that you can safely manage it when you've got that kind of, those sort of activities going on is ridiculous.
Yeah, exactly.
Like I said earlier, when I was in the schools campaign, it really got me thinking about it, and just some of the stuff that we kind of came across. I mean, there were stories around the schools, and I've certainly been involved with schools over the years, where it just proves that schools are special places in the fact of the regulations they fit if you don't think about them too much. On the basis of them being a building and a framework, yes, they work. However, in reality, like you just said, when you've got kids in there, they don't work. And I mean, there were schools that we were involved with a few years ago where the kids knew about asbestos. And we're talking about a secondary school. And what they would do would be, if they wanted to have a Friday afternoon off, well, one of them would put a foot through the wall, or break the door, or bounce the football against the ceiling, that kind of stuff. And then lo and behold, all the kids get sent home. But even that didn't seem to have traction with, and that's the problem with, I think, getting people on board. It's they hear it, they understand it. Oh, my child's been sent home because of an asbestos issue. But then on Monday, all the kids have gone back into school, and the parents haven't asked any more questions. They've not kind of said, well, hold on a minute, is this safe? What's the deal here? And I find that because they go through school and they're changing year after year in different classrooms and stuff, I don't know. I think parents, it's a difficult one, isn't it? It's because we've discussed it before. It's like if if asbestos was like the other licensed permissioned industries in the UK, nuclear, explosives, if they go wrong, they kill you instantly. You're dead. And I think that's the problem that we face. And it's kind of like, if you look at the parallel between the asbestos industry and the tobacco industry, that's still going. I mean, we know if you smoke for a long time that you're likely to get lung cancer. And we're now in 2021. I can go and buy cancer sticks from the shop. And it's kind of, as people, we understand this knowledge and this kind of thing, oh, I shouldn't do that. And it's the same with asbestos.
Yeah.
And I don't know how we break this kind of thing
I'll be all right.
Yeah, I'll be all right, Jack. Exactly. It's that kind of, we need to break it so it is hard hitting. I mean, look at COVID.
I'm not sure I fully agree with that analysis, though. I mean, the fact that it's not visible and not immediate, I totally agree. That is the problem.
Yeah.
I mean, if people being, you put your foot through the wall, to use your example, and the wall fell on top of you, I mean, that's immediate. They deal with it. But if we look at, say, the tobacco industry, I mean, the difference is that there is a stated goal by the government to effectively, eradicate smoking in this country by a certain time frame. Now, I agree that you can still go and buy cancer sticks. It seems bonkers, but it's taxed to the hilt. It is well recognised. They've stopped advertising, and there is a stated goal to eradicate tobacco, or to eradicate smoking in this country. There isn't any of that with asbestos.
We've got to get all out of public buildings by 1935. Can you imagine them trying to? I don't think they'll do it.
Do you mean by 2035?
Sorry, what did I say? 19. sorry. Yeah, by 2035, and
But what I'm trying to get at, I mean, it seems to me with asbestos, and you guys are, you're in the industry, but it just seems because asbestos is not immediate, it's really easy to just kick it down the road. Not our problem for now. We've got too many other priorities, financial priorities, to worry about it now. And the difference, I would say, between smoking and tobacco and asbestos is the awareness, right? You can go to every adult in the country, even if they're a smoker, they know they shouldn't be doing it, right? But most people, but they know about the dangers of it. The thing with asbestos is that people, I personally believe that a lot of people, they just have no concept of how dangerous it is. They have no concept of the diseases and the illnesses that you can get. They have no concept of the amount of asbestos that are in our everyday buildings, such as schools, hospitals. And that brings us back to this awareness, at least with the tobacco and smoking, smoking sort of industry, it's well known and well recognized. Here, it's not.
It's difficult, and that's the problem with being in the industry and facing what we face. I mean, day in and day out. I mean, even now, 2021, we're going to do surveys of premises that have never had a survey before, and the regulations first came in 2002. And it's and that's the thing. It's the struggle that we have every day to
tell people that they have to do this.
It's not us making it up. It's not. We're not doing it for fun. It's just from the core basic thing of, one, everybody's got a duty of care to look after one and everybody else, and two, it's the law, it's the regulation. You need to comply with this, and they're still not complying with it.
But what I find with my photos that they send me, they've already had surveys, and I always ask the question: was it surveyed before? Was it picked up before? And it wasn't. So there seems to be a lack. Not I mean, we do get good surveyors, of course we do, but there is a lack of rules and regulations to adhere to for surveys.
No,
I agree.
Absolutely, they are. You have to be UCAS accredited to do the testing element, so the analysis of samples and air samples, but you don't have to be for the surveying, the inspection element. So there's no real benchmark enforcement within that side of the industry, is there?
No, I mean, HC strongly recommend the use of UCAS accredited surveyors, but that's it.
I like the smart that's coming out, that they're going to survey every building, aren't they? And they're going to put it on an app, and so that when my son, who is a fire alarm engineer, goes to that building, he'll be able to put his phone over it, and he'll see all the surveyor's report and where the asbestos is, and he would know where not to drill. And that needs to be on every building, and I back that wholeheartedly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, just going off the point you made, Paul, it's like we all kind of remember the government campaigns regarding, most recent one off the top of my head is the GDPR. You know, the big fuss that was made around, you've got to make sure you're doing this right, people's personal data. And then if you actually think about, when was the last campaign they had about asbestos? The HC ran one asbestos. It
was the Hidden Killer campaign,
2009,
2010. They spent £1 million, which, as a roll off the tongue figure, wow, £1 million. However, in reality, when that goes into like the corporate world for advertising, £1 million is sod all. It's literally next to nothing.
Yeah.
But also, who was that campaign aimed at?
That was aimed at electricians, plumbers, tradespeople.
Yes. Yeah.
So,
not everyday people.
No.
So once again, I mean, totally, people in the trades, they should know this 100%. So
yeah.
I find it shocking that everybody in the trades is not sort of, front and centre with the dangers of asbestos. But once again, £1 million, you're right, is a drop in the ocean. That's the first thing. Second thing, if we look at, in the grand scheme of things in this country, it's quite a small part of the population.
Yeah,
I mean, we need everybody. There's my son is at a sports club on Saturday mornings, and all the parents are standing around. I was chatting to one of the mums, and she told me they've just moved from London. They've just bought this big house. She said they're a bit shocked to find it was riddled with asbestos. Okay, fine. So they've got a building company in. They're also going to do the asbestos removal, and they're living there while this is going on. And I said to her, you can't be doing that. And she had no idea about my background or ActionMeso or any of that. I said, no, we've spoken to the builders. They say it's fine, because what they're going to do is they're basically saying, well, they're putting up plastic sheeting and it will be fine for you to live there, with a house that is riddled with asbestos. So it seems clear to me that either the building firm were sort of charlatans, or that they just didn't understand the full impact of asbestos. So I think, once again, this whole kind of awareness and education, it needs to be across the board.
Definitely, because when you, if you think about it, you're right. When you target electricians, plumbers, carpenters, and there's an advert in the paper, and I don't know, you're a receptionist at a school, well, instantly you see the advert and you discount it because it's got nothing to do with you. Whereas, like you say, in reality, we need to spread the actual message much more far and wide. It's crazy. Neil and I went to a site last week, and it's shocking because we walked away and our sentiment was like, that was fantastic, because the electricians stopped work. It was great, and it was a good buzz. We had a good buzz. We spoke about it.
Yeah.
We shouldn't be feeling like that. That should be the norm. Yeah. And again, it's ridiculous thinking now that we come away going, oh, fantastic. Like, we applauded the guys on site and said, no, you really have done the right thing. Well done. And again, like, it's stupid because that should be the normality.
Yeah.
But, just thinking about, you're quite right. If you see an advert and it's directed at a certain segment, electricians say, if you're a teacher, you see something directed at electricians, why would you read it? We all just move on. And one of the ideas as well about just getting more numbers, it really is how I think we'll start to get traction. Let's just use schools, for example. Yeah. So my son goes to a school and they've got about 300 pupils. It's a little primary school. So within it, I don't actually know how many staff there are. It doesn't really matter. Call it 20, call it 30. Call it 40, doesn't really matter. You've got 40 staff. If you've got 300 kids in there, that means you've got at least 300 parents, but more likely 400, 500 parents. Yeah. You start getting all of those people engaged. It's not just the teachers, it's people from all walks of life. That I'm pretty sure if you did a survey of those parents, they would have no idea, or just parents in general, they would have no idea about the dangers of asbestos and what they were potentially sending their kids into. So I mean, if we can bring the community together and then start going outside of that, we get that network effect, and we can start to extrapolate those numbers really quickly, and then I'm pretty sure that people will start to take notice.
Yeah, I feel sometimes with asbestos, it's kind of a dirty secret. I've got asbestos. Shh, don't tell anyone. And it's kind of getting across that barrier. And to be 100% transparent, you have to have everything. And that's the kind of the barrier I think we sort of face is no one wants to talk about it. No one wants to admit they've got asbestos in a building, even though, you know, a large majority of the buildings in this country contain it, because it's not seen as a good thing for that company or organisation. And that's kind of what we face is everyone wants to kind of shh it up, you know, and make it kind of just go away and don't say anything. It'll be all right sort of mentality.
I think it's because it involves money too.
Yes.
I think it's about time the government did a grant system to help people take asbestos out of their buildings, out of their homes. I'd love to have homes all surveyed, but let's have a government grant to help people. When they first found out that asbestos gave you cancer, the government hushed it up. They said, "Oh, that's all right. We'll pay a bit of compensation. That's fine," because they thought we'd all die, and then we didn't. We're not dying, and we've got younger people now suffering with it, and so you've got to throw some money at it.
Yeah, it's like the COVID has brought up the kind of the money situation. Look what we can do when there's a need.
Exactly.
And it's just bringing that need agenda
through like that, because everyone worked together and they got the vaccine out. You know, my treatment is added up to over £1 million.
Wow.
12 years. It's over £1 million. I'm one person.
Yeah.
You know, there's other people that there's so many. So the awareness has got to be there, and it does take money.
Come back to your earlier point, though, we also need to change the dialogue, right? Because, and I still can't maintain it comes back to awareness, because at the moment, let's just say it is a bit of a dirty secret, you know, or we found asbestos. Take the school, a school, we found asbestos. Shh, keep it quiet.
Yeah.
Now, they've got a number of issues. Number one, it's that, we should keep it quiet because it's the dirty secret. Secondly, do they actually have the funds to do anything about it? That's also the issue. What are we going to do? Are we going to close the school? We don't have the expertise. Imagine if we turn it on its head. So we've got that awareness. And rather than people thinking we've got to cover this up, they're like, we found asbestos. They kind of announce the fact. Then people, and you turn that dialogue on its head and people are like, that's a well-run school. The minute they found out, they announced it.
Yeah.
We've used, you keep using COVID as an example. When countries have announced, take South Africa, the South Africa strain, they announced it immediately. Everybody was like, well done, South Africa, for finding it so quickly and announcing it so quickly, so we can try and do something about it. But that's because we're all in it together, right?
Yeah, yeah.
If we can turn that dialogue on its head, so rather than it be the dirty secret, it was something like we just accept, most places probably have it. So, buildings of a certain generation. So now what are we going to do about it?
Yeah, I mean the Ofsted school reports, parents review that to see whether they want to send their kids to that school because it's a good school or an improving school or whatever the rating it is. Again, that could be something that's incorporated into that. That essentially hits both things, because then you've got reputational issues if you're not dealing with it, and financial implications, because if the children or parents stop sending their kids to that school, then that school is not going to be as well funded. So that's kind of being tackled from that scenario. And again, all these things, they need to come from, you're right, we need to push, but we need to get everybody the community on board and then make the government change their ways.
Do you know, one thing that occurred to me is, one, it's also disparate in terms of the community, number one. Number two, we haven't gone outside the community, so a lot of people on the street, as it were, don't know what it is. And thirdly, there are so many important issues. We've already talked about schools, and then we've talked about, hospitals, and there'll be other things. And so, well, we could be doing this and we could be doing that, and try and sort of just solve little bits of the problem. Well, that's not how I think we need to address it. When we've got, that awareness, so that, imagine if we're going to come back to schools, parents are asking, so what about this school? What's the situation with asbestos? Have they had asbestos? No. Have they had it removed? What have they done? That will turn it on its head. Yeah. And that will actually, funnily enough, the situation will start to solve itself.
I suppose the big question is how can people get involved, and what do you want people to do?
This is the question. So, what I want, and I think we've come together, so we're a working group of about 14 people so far. And as I said earlier, the three segments we'd love this year are the asbestos removal industry and training and anything around that sort of part of the business, and lawyers and the medical community. We'd like you to follow us on social media. We'd like you to actually sign up to the website, and we'd like you to become active supporters. So what does that mean? Help us with any resources you can. I'm not talking about money at this moment in time. For example, if you have a newsletter, put it in the newsletter. If you're training people, as part of your training pack, could we have one slide as part of that training pack to say who we are and what we're doing? When we're getting a message out there, send it to all of your supporters, your followers, etc. So it is that active engagement of, if you like, evangelizing or getting the message out there. That's all we're asking for at this moment in time. If you go onto the website, actionmeso.org, you can sign up there. We're on all of the social media channels. So it's sign up, and then, as I say, be active in terms of your engagement. One thing we are actually planning on doing is reaching out to pretty much all of the firms individually within the community to see how they could get involved. In addition, if there's any resources that firms could offer, I mean, we are all doing this for free, by the way. No one's paid or anything like that, just to be clear. If there's any resources, people giving their time pro bono, for example, people have got a marketing department that they wouldn't mind lend us someone to help out from time. Anything, we need all the help we can get to do this, because it's completely voluntary, and it's just organisations coming together in order to try and make this happen.
Sure. Well, we're definitely going to put all the links within this and share it around on social media, and we'll bullet point what you've just said of what you want people to do.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Because I think it's a massive undertaking, but it's not something that can't be achieved. I think, like you say, with us collectively all pulling in the right direction, I think we will get there and spread the message. Definitely.
I'll tell you what I am excited about. We in the last, I seem to be having a few conversations every day at the moment with networks, groups, etc. And I mean, people do want to get behind this, and I think it just needed something to try and bring us all together. And what we're doing, and just to be very, very clear, we're not trying to take anything away from anybody. So if somebody is already, if there's a support group or a charity or an asbestos removal company or a training company that are already doing their own thing, got their own message, that's fine. That's great. We're not trying to stop anyone from doing that. All we're asking is just come together to support this in terms of getting this out there. And surely anyone in the industry has got to support it, you think, because it's very simple. It's, the fact that asbestos is a danger, what it is, what the dangers are, what mesothelioma is, and get it out to the masses. That's it.
Definitely. Well, so we normally finish interviews with asking, what does asbestos management mean to you? But I don't want to enclose you both into that question, really. Just my last sort of question to each of you would be, is there anything that you want to say, just that you really want to say that hasn't been said, or that you want to kind of re-go over and just get that point across of what people need to do, should be doing, shouldn't do, whatever? No, I'll start with you first, please, Mavis.
What I'd like to see changed is this fly tipping. I'm fed up with fly tipping. We went over the shops and in the car, and Ray, when I came back, Ray was missing. And there he is over the road with a skip where a house has some renovations. Everything's been put into the skip, and there's asbestos rope, there's everything. You know, Ray said, just look at all this asbestos. All in this skip. It was uncovered, wasn't covered over, and it's windy. And there's a little nursery up the road, lying over the children there, you know. So we got in touch with the skip hire at first, and they said, okay, we'll come and we'll cover it over and we'll look into it. But the point was, the builder didn't have any protection. The lads that worked with him didn't have any protection. So they took all that home to their family. And that's what I'd like to highlight is doesn't stay on that one spot in that one building. It gets taken home in the car. The children are picked up from school and they get the dust on them. We've got to really keep everyone safe. And another point is face masks. I never realised they're all made for men. They're made on men's measurements. You know, so even the pit workers, if they're women now, there's more women now, we've got to protect women more. In fact, I'm going to do, it's coming up Women's Day for cancers, and I'm doing a piece on that, you know, so we've got to protect the women as well as everybody else, children and everybody, the family matters.
Yeah, definitely. Great points.
Yeah. Paul, any final points?
Yeah, I mean, it's just to reiterate what I've already said. I mean, what I'd ask is, please help us. We need the support of the community. Otherwise, this is not going to work. This will be a dead duck. We really need the community to come together, and don't leave it to others. Right? It's really easy for people to think, yeah, that's a great campaign, but then not get involved. I mean, in order for this to work, it's not about Mavis and I or the working group. It really is about everybody, you know, within that community. So that's it, really. Please help us. Please support. Please join up.
Thank you. Thank you very much.